Hello, Sandy Leach here, and I'm going to give you an overview of our district APR summary. APR stands for our annual progress report, and this is basically our district report card. It takes all the different categories that were scored in and funnels them into one main report to give you an overall view and picture of the district. It's divided into 5 main categories. That's academic achievement, subgroup achievement, college and career readiness, attendance, and graduation rate. And I'll walk you through those items as we move forward. Here is our district APR, so our annual performance report. I'd like to point out a couple of things. One, right here it will show us how many points are possible, that's 140, and how many points we got as a district. So we got 125 points out of 140 points. So we got 89.3% of our points, and that is our overall score as a district. One thing that I will note is we're working very hard to break the 90 percentile points. That in the past has been where the distinction in performance mark was. Districts who achieved above the 90% rate were given the distinction in performance. So if we can break that barrier when that reward and that recognition comes back, we're hoping to be in that group. Right now, they are not recognizing districts for distinction in performance because of all the changes in testing and standards. Down here, those 5 subcategories that we get scores on that I showed you on the page before, it shows you how many points are possible in each of those areas and how many points we earned. There are a couple really positive things I'd like to point out. On our academic achievement, we earned 55 out of 56 points, which is very, very positive. That's hard to do. Also, I wanted to point out that our graduation rate, we earned 30 points out of 30 points, so very good there as well. These 2 areas are areas we're looking at how we can improve and get more of those points to push our score up. One of the main areas is attendance. We could gain some of those points back, and we're currently researching other districts and other ways that we can increase this amount for next year. The other area is college and career readiness, and we've already met as a high school team this year on how to improve some of those points, and we're working towards a plan on that as well. Couple need-to-know facts. APR is complicated. There are multiple years of data that go into APR. It's not just this year. It takes into account 3 years of data, so it averages 2 years of data, and then it averages another 2 years of data, and it subtracts and does all of these complicated statistical things. I will walk you through that a little bit later, but I did want to point out it is not just this year, it's a rolling average of 3 years. Each area reported in APR does have a full explanation, all the nitty-gritty details of how it scored, why it scored that way, the rubrics that they use, the statistics, the formulas, all of that are in this guide right here. If you are interested in that, I provided the link so you can look into it further because I will not have sufficient time to go into all of those details for this particular presentation. The APR Talking Points handout does a very nice job of summarizing the most important points of APR. I've printed off copies of that report and the talking points. They're on colored paper and will be given to you tonight. That way, if community members have questions, you can have some good things to tell them and some just general talking points about APR. To that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the talking points to just give you a quick overview of what those look like. There we go. Here are the basic talking points. This is what this looks like. You'll get a copy of this. Just going to hit the high points. You can go back and read some of the other things. MSIP 5, you'll hear that term a lot. That's the Missouri School Improvement Program. That's the overall program of which APR is the report that comes from that. Down here it tells you how many different districts in the state of Missouri are scoring in what places. There are some unaccredited districts, provisionally accredited districts, and fully accredited districts. I will show you where our school district falls in that in the presentation. We are fully accredited at this point, but it just gives you an overall picture of the state of Missouri. It's some interesting information. This next part is about charter schools, which does not apply to us, so I'm going to skip over that. A point I would like to make is right now, here's the phrase that I'm going to use. Whenever the department uses a new assessment, the results shall not be used to lower a public school district's accreditation. So right now, because we gave new assessments at the end of last year that were all aligned to new standards, the state is not going to hold our assessment scores from last year against us, and that is the name for that is hold harmless, and that's right here. In English Language Arts and Math, we are hold harmless. What that means is, last year when our scores came in ELA, we scored one way, in Math we scored another way, but if our scores from the year before, based on the test that we've always given and that we were familiar with on the old standards, if those scores were higher, we got to take those scores. However, if last year's scores on the new assessment were higher, we got to take those scores. So whichever score ended up better, we were not penalized for giving a new assessment. I would like to point out that next year, we will still be giving a rigorous assessment over the same standards we gave last year. And if they do not appoint another hold harmless, which I'm not sure that they will, we might expect our scores to dip a little bit because they will not be hold harmless. The assessment is more rigorous. And so that, not saying that we're not going to do everything we possibly can to prepare our students, but that's something I wanted to give you a heads up on so that you were aware that that could potentially happen in the future. Some of this is just about calculation of progress and different ways to do that. I'll let you look over that on your own. One really important point that is also included in the slideshow is comments about different ways that the state shows and gives us points for academic achievement. And this can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to zoom in and show you this. There's a difference between status, progress, and growth, and we can get points for all three of those things. Status is basically, it's shown right here, you can get 16 status points. That is your overall achievement for that year. So if you get a certain percentage of your students who are scoring proficient or advanced, that's how you get status points. It's based on how they score that year. Progress points are based on your overall district scores from year to year. So last year's assessment scores in certain areas compared to this year's, if it went up as a district in areas, you will get some of those progress points because the district is making progress. So this is a district indicator for progress. Growth is student specific. So they take every single individual student score, they convert it to a Z-score and do a bunch of different things with statistics, but in short, it is every student score compared to their score the next year, and it's based on the percentage of students who showed growth from year to year. The reason that they give you three different ways to earn points is to make it fair for districts in all different types of situations. For example, if there is a district who is just really knocking it out of the park academically, and they are consistently scoring very, very high on their assessments, they'll probably get most of their points in status. So each year, their students will do very, very well, and they will get a lot of status points. However, let's say there's a district who is just down in the dumps and they're tanking it on their assessments, but last year they did very, very poorly, and this year they improved a lot. They will still not get status points probably because they're not to where they need to be for a target. However, the state will give them progress points, meaning we recognize that you're moving in the right direction and you're making progress, so we'll give you those points. Growth points are the points that are student specific, like I shared earlier. So individual students, did they grow from last year to this year? So you can also get growth points. And I'll show you how those line up for our district as well. One other thing to note is it's interesting, the total points you can get in the academic achievement area will be down here. If you'll notice, these do not add up to 16. 16 is the max number of points you can earn. So even if you earn more than 16, 16 is what you get. So that is actually applicable to us in some of our areas. So if you see that, that's why it looks that way. Subgroup achievement. Subgroup achievement is those students who are either free and reduced lunch, have an IEP, ELL, different race, those students. So we keep track of those students that take the MAP A. One note, our MAP A assessment changed last year. It was a totally new format and one that was more difficult and more rigorous. So our scores in the MAP A and a couple of the subgroup areas went down a little bit, not very much, due to some new assessments in the way they're distributing those. And then the other things are things I've already discussed with you, how they score those other categories. Supporting data, I'm going to break down each area of APR just to show you where our district is and how many points we got. Our district uses this data to inform our practice and shape plans for improvement. So our building school improvement plans, our comprehensive school improvement plans, this data is not just sitting there. We're pulling it out. We're looking at it. We're using it to say, what did we do well? How can we grow? What should we do with it? I already showed you this in the APR talking points. I wanted to point out those different ways to earn points, and you've already seen that. So we'll skip this slide. This is our specific districts, 5 areas that were scored on, broken down into individual categories so that you can see that. Academic achievement, as you can see, we earned in ELA 16 out of 16 points. In math, we earned 15 out of 16 points. Science, we earned 16 out of 16 points. And in social studies, it cut it off on the screencast. I apologize, but we earned 8 out of 8 points. So you can see how those work. All of this information over here, if you are interested in knowing more about it, I can explain it for you. Oops. As far as how the rolling averages are calculated, we don't have time to dig that deep into the rabbit hole right now, but if you would like to at some point, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go through that. In subgroup achievement, we earned 3 out of 4 points in ELA, 2 out of 4 in math, 3 out of 4 in science, and 2 out of 2 in social studies. In college and career readiness, it will show you that we earned 8 out of 10 points in our college and career readiness assessments. Those are ACT, work keys, the assessments that our students take. Advanced placement, we earned 6 out of 10 points. That's whether they are taking AP classes and dual credit classes, and we're working on increasing this number this year. Post-secondary placement is whether they go on to go to college, enroll in the military, or they are placed in a job that lines up with the pathway of study that they chose in high school. So we got 8 out of 10 points there. Next is our attendance, and I'm sorry it cut off the score down here as well. We earned 6 out of 10 points. I've already shared with you that we are investigating how we can help that number grow in the future. And then graduation rate, we earned 30 out of 30 points. Actually, we earned 36 here, but as you can see, we are only given 30 because that's the max number of points you can earn. Again, 30 out of 30. Great job on graduation. Another 30 out of 30. They calculate graduation several different ways, so they calculate it by how many years the students have been with us, and that's why you see several different graduation rates there. This right here is just some explanation of terms. I think I shared what each of those terms meant as we went through, but if you have questions or you want to go back and look at it, this PowerPoint is included in your board packet, so you can go back and reference this. Where do we fall on the spectrum? This is, we're at 89.3, so we are right here. We're fully accredited right in the middle, trying to make the jump to above 90, so that in the future, when they hopefully reinstate distinction in performance, we will get to have that. Just as a closing point, data by itself is useless. Data is only useful if you apply it. So once again, we're not letting this data just sit there and do nothing. We're looking at it. We discussed it in an admin meeting just last week. We've discussed it with the high school counseling team. We're discussing it with all the principals, and we're using this data to make our district the best that it can be. The goal is to turn data into information and information into insight, and that's where we're headed. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful meeting. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to sit down and go through the information with you. Have a wonderful evening.